Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nerds the Human, and welcome to this special Games Guide edition of Medieval 2 Total War, where today we're going to have a look at how you can add units to factions, whichever units you like, in fact. Because you can see here we've got ourselves some Polish Jaguar warriors and conquistadors, which are taking on the Papal/Danish Norse war clerics. Yes, bit of a mouthful that one, but indeed you can add whatever unit you like to whichever faction, and we're also going to fix that little Silver Surfer bug that we've seen in my campaigns. So let's get into the files. As with any modding for Medieval 2 Total War, you do need to unpack the files and change around the preference file to make sure any changes you make stick. There is a link in the description below, but today we need to head inside the data folder, and we are going to swing most of the way down right towards the bottom here, export_desca_unit. Once inside the file, the first step is pretty simple. We're going to choose ourselves a unit, in this case the Armoured Clergy or the Norse War Clerics. We're going to use the find function to go and head down to that unit and simply scroll down the bottom to the ownership. Now if you want to know more about this file, it's very well explained towards the top. I do have some other videos where we look at this, so there'll be a little link in the description below. But most importantly for us, we need to change the ownership down here and add in the Papal States. Now if you're not sure how to format the name of the faction you're trying to add in here, then just look around the file. They're obviously all here somewhere. You can see down here, yeah, with the Northeast Bodyguard, there's a long list of factions here. It is pretty simple to get the formatting right, so just make sure you've got that all set up. And there's one other thing we're going to do here. It'll become clear in time, but we're going to make this a mercenary unit. Now, whilst that doesn't mean they're going to be hired out on the campaign map, that's we've got to play with a different file there, and that's in a separate video. Again, link in the description below. But what we're going to do instead is just make them a mercenary unit in order to kind of grease the wheels. It just makes it a little bit simpler further down the line. All will become clear eventually. So if we go and add that attribute onto the end here, then we are now ready to save this up. Back inside the data subfolder, and we're just going to go up a tiny bit to this file here, export_desca_buildings. Inside here we can mod all of the buildings, including the recruitment pools. Again, more links in the description below for other times where I've looked at this in more detail. But for now, we're simply going to be searching for the clergyman. Now you'll notice this time I'm writing clergy rather than cleric, because that is the name that it's going to use here. Armoured Clergy is the technical name. So we can see here that once you have yourself an abbey, that Denmark can hire them. We are simply, once again, going to add the Papal States into that. Just be careful with formatting in here. You do need a comma space before our fancy little bracket there. But essentially, that will now mean that we can hire them as well. Of course, we know that the Pope can already build an abbey, so there's no issue with that. What we do want to do, though, is just make sure that we don't miss out any of the higher tier buildings. Let's go down. Once again, we can see it over there. But to be honest, yeah, the last line is only here. So let's just go and grab that bracketed part at the end there. We'll just copy and paste that back in. Just make sure you go down. You can see here we've now got the huge cathedral, which also makes them available. They've now got 1 experience, which is marvellous. And yeah, now we're flicking back around in a cycle. There's only 3 buildings there, which make them recruitable. And with that now, we can use them, and they will appear in our recruitment pool once we've built ourselves an abbey. For step 3, we need to head into the UI folders to make sure we change around a few of the unit cards, just to make sure everything doesn't look too scruffy. So if we scroll up in the data folder, we'll eventually find the UI folder here, and we simply need to go into these 2 files. So inside the unit info, we'll find the Danish folder, and from there we can pick ourselves the Armoured Clergyman. We're simply going to copy that, then head from there back into the Merc folder. Now remember, we are going to class these as Mercs, not Papal States. You can put it in there as well if you want, but we need it in the Mercenary folder for later. So once we've done that, we can head back into UI, back into units this time, and repeat the same process. Into Denmark, pick the Armoured Clergy card, copy that, and head into the Mercs folder and paste it in there. If you've seen any of my Papal States campaign, you'll well know that I've added in the Norse war clerics into my army. I've been using them occasionally, and indeed they are very much the silver surfers. They don't have themselves their proper skins here, and that's what we're going to go and fix today, because on my original video for fixing up units to different factions, I mainly focused on Rome Total War, because whilst this, I didn't really get bothered by this. It doesn't crash the game if you leave it like this, but it does slightly affect the immersion. And whilst I find the Silver Surfers kind of funny, it's nice to know how we can fix it. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to head back in the files and make sure these guys have their correct skins. To fix this problem, we're going to head back into data and into the unit models subfolder. From there, we simply need this file here, battle_models.modeldb. Now, this is probably a good time to remind you that any file you are going to change, please back it up. And that's particularly true of this one here, which, yes, when this is pointed out to me by Charles Armstrong in the comments, thank you very much, by the way, he described this file as a spaghetti nightmare, and indeed, it is an unformatted file that can look a little bit scary, but I do promise you it's not very much that we're going to need to change here. So let's head in, and I'll show you what we need to do. This file might well look incredibly intimidating, but trust me, we're going to keep it as simple as possible. And to do that, of course, we're going to use Control F and search for the clergyman. So once we've done that, we will find the reference to the armoured clergy. And from there, we need to find Denmark. So Denmark here are listed as faction number 7. So the number here is simply how the game refers to the faction. If we scroll around, we'll probably find some other examples. So the slaves, the rebels, are faction number 5, for example. So what we want to do then instead is make this a mercenary unit, which still means it's available for Denmark, of course, but it means that we can now make this available to whoever we like. So we are going to make them number 4, which is for the mercenaries, and then it is Merc, so for Merc. Now there are 4 of these lines I believe we need to change around. So the main thing here is just being careful and reading this through carefully to make sure you find all of them. I find this file's a little bit slow to react at times. It might be as dense as it looks in that sense. So if we keep on looking along, there's another 7 Denmark, change around to 4 and Merc. And there should be one final example down here. Perfect. So once you've done that, you might be a little bit unsure if you've got them all. So if you are feeling a little bit unsure, then get yourself back onto Find, kind of flick through, and obviously it will take you between the first and the final reference to that unit. So that at least gives you a kind of an area just to check back over. You can see here that it's got itself the next unit coming up very, very soon. The Northeast Bodyguard now is being referred to underneath. So I think there we've got it all. So now that this is listed as a mercenary unit, we can save this up and we're ready to load the game. Here we are then outside Rome on our Papal States campaign. You can see the Norse war clerics are now available to recruit. Of course, we built ourselves the abbey, and that's exactly how we're able to recruit them. And you might have noticed I added a couple extra lads in for the fun. Yes, of course, the Varangian Guard want to come along to defend the Pope in this world, and the battlefield assassins as well, because these guys are way, way too rarely seen. We might as well give them a little bit of a run out. So we'll have a couple end turns, and we'll run across this convenient rebel army that I spawned in here for us, and we'll go and take them on and see them in battle. Into battle we go then, with the Varangian Guard waving the papal banner, as well they should. They are looking rather resplendent, and yes indeed, here are the Norse war clerics. Finally we have the correct skins for them. We'll see them in their proper armour for the final episode of our Papal States campaign. That's only fair, I think. They've got themselves these rather marvellous gold tinge to their helmets, so best utilise them the best we can. Of course, the battlefield assassins, these only come out of the Assassins Guild if you play as Hungary. So yeah, I can't remember the last time I used these guys. It must have been at least a decade. Attack 16, defense 16, hit points of 2, can hide anywhere. Oh yes, these guys could be a lot of fun indeed. As our Varangians charge in for one final charge, then this is probably a good place to leave it for today. Indeed, I do think the opportunities are nearly boundless when it comes to this particular bit of modding. You can plug gaps in your army's roster, or indeed create your whole own model army if that's what you want to do. Varangian Guard here, I'd like to see them for Denmark, It'd be nice to see them coming home for one final hurrah. Indeed, the battlefield assassins over here, so rarely seen. I definitely think I want to add those in to one or two more factions. And of course, we have ourselves the Norse war clerics. I probably haven't used these quite as well as I could have on my Papal States campaign. Very good at sniping off other cavalry with their effect against armour weaponry. But anyway, for now I will leave you. I'm Thomas, this is Tenaz the Human, and this has been adding units and fixing the models in Medieval 2 Total War. Thank you, and goodbye.
By Jove, it is a marvellous, marvellous day. Spiffing, one would say. Any one for Pims.
He has seen the light, he has joined the anarchy, he is cruel and cunning, and you know what, he likes a little drink, and I think that's marvellous.
La 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 la, chop your way through the peasants. One shot! No!